My wife had an affair with our neighbor, and just as I was about to forgive her, I found out she forged my signature to transfer $250, $0 of our joint savings into her sister's account. Now we're in a brutal court battle over everything, and I don't even recognize the woman I married. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew my wife, Lisa. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 6, and I always believed we had a solid, if not perfect, relationship. She was the kind of woman who always dressed nicely, had a sharp tongue, and never missed a chance to remind me how lucky I was to have her. But looking back now, I should have seen the signs. Little things, really. The late nights, the quick responses to texts when she thought I wasn't looking, and that weird tension in the air whenever we were with friends or family. The whole nightmare started about 2 months ago. It was a typical Tuesday evening, and I was sitting in the living room scrolling through my phone, waiting for Lisa to come home from her job at the marketing firm. She usually got back around 6:30, but this night she was late, which wasn't entirely unusual. She liked to stay late sometimes, work on big projects, she'd say. I didn't think much of it at first, but as the hours ticked by, I started feeling that weird gnawing suspicion in my gut. When she finally walked in around 9:00, she was more tense than usual. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and she was avoiding eye contact. I remember asking her how her day was, and she brushed me off with a quick "fine," rushing into the kitchen without much explanation. That's when I noticed her phone was on the counter, screen facing down, which was unlike her. She was always glued to her phone. I couldn't resist. I reached over, grabbed it, and unlocked it with my thumb. She never changed her passcode, but I'd never really needed to check before. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were dozens of texts from a number I didn't recognize, filled with flirtatious messages, emojis, and plans to meet up. One message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I've been thinking about you all day." I felt my blood boil. I kept scrolling, and there were more explicit photos and even a few selfies she'd taken. She was cheating on me. I stared at her in disbelief, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? Was this the reason she'd been so distant lately? I didn't wake her up that night. Instead, I sat there in the dark, trying to process what I'd just seen. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and confusion. How could she do this after everything we'd been through? I thought about the times she complained about her job, how she'd say she was stressed, and I'd try to be supportive. I thought about the weekends we spent together, the vacations, the plans for a future I now realize she never really wanted with me. The next morning, I woke up feeling hollow. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed to gather myself. I started digging through her stuff, her emails, her social media accounts, anything I could find. Turns out, she had been sneaking around for months. I found messages between her and the neighbor, Mark, who, by the way, is a slimy piece of work. They'd been meeting in secret at his house, and from the tone of her texts, it was more than just a fling. It was sex, and probably more than once. The betrayal cut so deep I almost couldn't breathe. I had trusted her. I had loved her. And now I found out she'd been lying, cheating, and forging my signature to steal money from us. I discovered that she transferred $250, $0 from our joint savings into her sister's account, without my knowledge or consent. I couldn't believe she'd go that far, that she'd risk everything just to feed her greed and her affair. It was like I was living in some twisted nightmare, and I was the only one who saw it coming. I sat there, staring at all the evidence, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Part of me wanted to scream, to break everything in sight, but another part just wanted to understand how she could do this to me, to us. How she could lie so blatantly, cheat so openly, and then try to cover it all up with more lies and excuses. I remembered her telling me she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. Yeah, right. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about money, trust, and a woman I no longer recognized. I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to confront her, but I also knew that once I did, everything would change forever. And honestly, I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. The confrontation was inevitable. I had all the proof I needed, her texts, her secret emails, the bank statements showing the transfer of our savings into her sister's account. I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug, not anymore. I had to face her, and I had to do it quickly before she had a chance to spin some lie or destroy evidence. That evening, I called her into the living room. She looked nervous, her face a little pale, but she tried to play it off like everything was normal. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me with those big, innocent eyes, the kind she always used when she wanted to manipulate me. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked, batting her lashes. That's when I laid the evidence out on the table, her messages, the bank transfer confirmation, the emails from her and Mark. Her reaction was priceless. Initially, she tried to deny everything. "Oh, come on, you're overreacting," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. "You're just jealous. Mark and I are just friends. Those texts, they're nothing. You're imagining things." I stared at her, furious. "Nothing, really. You forged my signature, Lisa. You transferred $250, $0 of our savings into your sister's account. Do you even realize what you've done? How could you lie to my face about this?" She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You don't understand. I was just trying to help my sister. She's been having a tough time. It's not like I took it for myself. And the affair, that's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. You're blowing everything out of proportion." Her words made me feel sick. She was lying so blatantly, so casually. I could see the deception in her eyes. She was trying to minimize everything, make herself the victim. I lost control for a moment. "You think I don't know what's going on? You've been screwing Mark behind my back, haven't you? I found your texts, I saw the pictures, and now I find out about the money. How much more are you hiding from me? How long has this been going on?" She looked furious now, her face twisting into a sneer. "You think I'd cheat on you? You're so paranoid. You're just jealous because I've been busy working and trying to make a life for us. And the money, I was going to tell you eventually. You're always so suspicious. Maybe if you paid more attention, you know what's really going on." That was when I realized her lies were endless. She had an answer for everything, a justification for every betrayal. It was like talking to a wall of denial. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and disgust. How could she be so indifferent to what she'd done? To me? I saw the woman I loved turn into this cold, manipulative stranger, someone I no longer recognized. The worst part was the betrayal of trust. I had trusted her with everything, our money, our future, my feelings, and she had thrown it all away for a quick affair and greed. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let myself believe she was just stressed or busy. Deep down, I knew I was for so long, but I also knew I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me anymore. The room felt heavy, thick with silence after her last denial. I looked at her, and I saw the woman I thought I knew, but she was gone, replaced by someone I didn't want to be married to anymore. I told her I needed some time to think, that I couldn't stay in that house anymore. She tried to convince me to stay, to work things out, but I knew I couldn't. Not after what I'd uncovered. That night, I stayed up late, going over every piece of evidence again. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, so angry I could barely breathe. I wondered how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been blind to her lies. I kept asking myself if I should fight for her, try to save what was left, or just cut my losses and walk away. I did have an answer yet. All I knew was that my life was about to change forever, and I was about to step into a world I never thought I'd face. The next morning was a blur. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, and every part of me was aching, emotionally, physically, and mentally. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, over and over again. Her lies, her dismissiveness, the way she looked at me like I was the one in the wrong. I couldn't believe I had trusted her for so long. It was like discovering I'd been living with a stranger all these years, a woman capable of such deception and betrayal. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her continue to manipulate the situation or destroy more of what was left of our life savings. The money, 250, was just the tip of the iceberg. The real damage was the trust she'd shattered, and I was determined to get to the bottom of it. I called my lawyer first thing, explaining everything I'd uncovered. We agreed that I needed to file a police report about the forged signature and the stolen money. It was a serious crime, and I couldn't just let her get away with it. While I was on the phone, Lisa started texting me, trying to guilt trip me, I guess. "Please, we can talk. I didn't mean for it to come to this. I love you," she wrote. I stared at the screen and felt nothing but disgust. Love. That word felt so hollow now, so tainted by her lies. I didn't respond. I knew that any attempt to reason with her now was pointless. She'd already lied her way out of every situation, spun every excuse she could think of. I decided I had to get my hands on all the accounts, all the financial documents. I contacted the bank and explained the situation. They froze the accounts linked to her sister's transfer and flagged the suspicious activity. I also reached out to a private investigator I'd hired earlier just in case. I wanted to know if she had any other hidden accounts or secret investments. If she'd been stealing from me, I had to find out how deep it went. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she was innocent, that she was trying to help her sister, that I was overreacting. She was good at lying, so good that even I started questioning myself. Was I just paranoid? Was I missing something? But then I looked at the cold, calculated way she'd handled everything, and I knew the truth. It was all a cover-up. She'd been planning this for a long time. As the day went on, I began to realize the full scope of her betrayal. She'd been cheating on me with Mark, the neighbor, for months. That wasn't just sex, it was a full-blown affair. And while she was doing that, she was secretly draining our savings, forging my signature and lying about her whereabouts. I felt sick thinking about how she'd been living a double life, one with me and one with Mark and her sister. I also learned from the bank that she had taken out a line of credit against our house, claiming it was for home improvements. But I knew better. She'd been planning to run away with Mark, to start fresh somewhere else with our money. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. I had trusted her with everything, and she had repaid me with lies, sex, and theft. That night I sat in the living room, staring at the wall, feeling numb. All the plans we'd made, the dreams we'd shared, they felt like they belonged to a different lifetime. I couldn't believe I was here, alone, fighting to save what was left of my life from a woman I once loved. I felt a strange mixture of anger and grief, knowing I had to make some hard choices. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to fight for what was right, even if it meant tearing everything apart. I knew I was about to face a brutal court battle. She'd probably try to spin it as a misunderstanding, a mistake, but I had enough evidence to prove her guilt. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go to keep her lies hidden. All I could do now was prepare for the storm ahead. I was about to lose a lot: money, trust, and maybe even my marriage. But I was determined to do whatever it took to get justice. I promised myself I wouldn't be the fool anymore. The days that followed were a whirlwind of chaos and planning. I spent every waking moment coordinating with my lawyer, trying to piece together all the evidence I had collected and figure out my next move. Lisa was still acting like everything was fine, or at least she was trying to. She'd come home, put on her fake smile, and pretend like nothing had happened, like she wasn't the person who had lied, cheated, and stolen from me. But I saw through it. The mask was cracking, and I was done playing nice. She started to get more aggressive with her lies, trying to deflect and spin her version of events. "You don't understand," she'd say, voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "I was only trying to help my sister. I never meant for any of this to happen. And the affair, it was just sex. It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting as usual." I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd heard enough of her bullshit. Her words didn't match her actions. The evidence was clear, and I was going to use it all. I also made a point to dig into her phone and her emails more thoroughly. She was sloppy sometimes, leaving little breadcrumbs behind, thinking she was clever. I found more messages between her and Mark, more explicit stuff, plans to meet up, even talk about how they'd keep it hidden from me. She'd been lying to me the entire time, hiding the affair behind of normalcy. I felt sick every time I thought about how much I'd missed, how much I'd trusted her, only to find out she'd been cheating and stealing from me at the same time. One of the most shocking things I uncovered was the forged signature on a document giving her authority to transfer the money. It was so blatant I could see the difference in her handwriting. I took the evidence straight to my lawyer, who confirmed it was a clear case of fraud. That was when I realized she'd been planning this for a while, not just the affair, but the theft, the deception, everything. She'd been living a double life and I was just now waking up to it. The emotional toll was brutal. I was angry, devastated, and confused. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and now I was questioning everything. Was she always this manipulative? Did she ever really love me, or was I just convenient? The betrayal cut so deep that I sometimes felt like I was losing my mind. I'd catch myself wondering if I should fight for her, try to save what was left, or just walk away and forget about everything. But I knew I couldn't ignore the facts. The evidence was mounting, and I had to act fast. I contacted the bank again, demanding they freeze all her accounts and start legal proceedings. I also filed a police report about the forgery and theft. I wasn't going to let her get away with any more lies or manipulation. I had to protect what was mine, my money, my reputation, and whatever was left of my dignity. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She'd lash out, accuse me of being paranoid, say I was just jealous of her relationship with Mark. She'd cry, yell, and then try to manipulate me into feeling guilty. "You're just jealous because I still have feelings for Mark," she said one day, her eyes full of venom. "You're too controlling. Maybe you're the one who's really cheating, not me." That was her favorite line: blame me, turn everything around, make me think I was the crazy one. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. The reality was sinking in. I was about to lose everything: my wife, my savings, my sense of stability. But I also knew I had to stand my ground. I couldn't let her destroy me, not without a fight. I was determined to see this through, no matter how brutal it would get. I had enough evidence now to take her to court for the theft, and I was ready to do it. I also started to think about my next steps emotionally. I knew I couldn't stay in that house, not with her there, pretending everything was fine. I moved into a friend's place temporarily, giving myself some space to breathe and plan. Deep down, I wondered if I could ever trust her again, if she was even capable of genuine remorse. Honestly, I doubted it. She had lied so much that I felt like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. All I knew for sure was that I wasn't going to let her win. I was fighting for my life, for my money, and for whatever dignity I had left. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined. This wasn't just about her cheating, it was about her betrayal of everything we'd built, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. The court date was set after weeks of back and forth, legal battles, and endless sleepless nights. I remember sitting in that courtroom feeling like I was in some bad movie. Lisa sat across from me, looking surprisingly calm, like she had already made up her mind she was going to walk away unscathed. But I knew better. I had all the evidence and I was ready to fight. The first thing the judge asked was about the forged signature and the transfer of our savings. My lawyer laid it all out, showing the fraudulent documents, the email evidence, the bank statements. It was clear-cut. She had planned this, and her lies crumbled under the weight of the truth. Then came the revelation of her affair with Mark. I presented the texts, the photos, everything I had uncovered. The judge listened intently, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Lisa tried to deny everything, but her voice trembled when she was caught in her lies. She threw out excuses, saying she was under stress, that she only wanted to help her sister, that the affair was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. But her words didn't match her actions. The evidence proved she'd been manipulating, lying, and stealing from me for months. Her attempts at damage control only made her look more guilty. What struck me most was her blatant arrogance. She sat there, acting like she was the victim, like I was overreacting. She even had the nerve to say I was paranoid, that I didn't understand her struggles. I felt my blood boil. How could she be so indifferent, so cold? She had shattered everything: our marriage, my trust, our financial security, and she was still trying to gaslight me. The judge finally made her ruling. She ordered Lisa to return the stolen money, plus interest, and to pay penalties for the forged signature. She also ordered an investigation into her financial activities and her relationship with Mark. The court was clear. Her actions were illegal and she was going to pay for them. I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. It was like a huge weight had been lifted, but I knew the fight wasn't over yet. Afterward, Lisa's attitude didn't change much. She tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, a mistake, and even accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I saw her for what she was, a woman who had lied, cheated, and stolen from me with no remorse. The court's decision was a start, but I knew she'd never truly take responsibility. She'd try to manipulate her way out of every consequence, just like she always did. The aftermath was a mess. She was ordered to pay back our money, but I doubted she had the means. Her account was drained, and I learned she'd been secretly borrowing against everything she could: credit cards, the house, even her own family. I filed for divorce knowing that I couldn't stay married to a woman who had betrayed me so completely. It hurt more than I can put into words, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally free from her lies. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding my life. I cut ties with her completely. I changed my bank accounts, secured my remaining assets, and sought therapy to deal with the emotional. I still think about what happened every day, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned a lot through this nightmare, about trust, deception, and the importance of paying attention to the little signs I'd ignored for too long. Looking back, I realize how blind I was. I trusted her blindly, and that trust was shattered. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight back, no matter how overwhelming the betrayal feels. I wish I could say I've fully moved on, but honestly, I'm still healing. Still trying to trust myself again. But one thing for sure, I'll never let anyone manipulate or betray me like that again. It's a brutal lesson, but maybe it had to happen. Because now I know what to watch out for, and I know that I deserve better. No one, no matter how charming or convincing, should be able to tear your world apart and walk away unscathed. That's what I learned from all of this. Never ignore the signs and always stand up for yourself, even when it feels impossible. It's been a few months since everything fell apart, and honestly, I'm still trying to put the pieces back together. Some days are better than others. I've had to learn how to trust again, how to believe that people can be honest and genuine. The hardest part isn't just losing the woman I thought I knew. It's realizing how much I let myself ignore the warning signs, how much I blinded myself because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Looking back, I see now that her lies weren't just about the affair or the money. They were about control, about hiding her true self behind a mask I was too blind to see. That realization stings, but it also pushes me forward. I've come to understand that sometimes you have to let go of what you thought was real to find out what's actually true. And that truth, as painful as it might be, is better than living in a lie. One thing I learned is the importance of paying attention to the small things, signs I dismissed, gut feelings I ignored, red flags I thought were just normal stresses. Those little cracks in the facade were there all along, and I just didn't want to see them. Now I know that honesty and transparency are the foundation of any relationship. Without them, everything crumbles. The financial mess was a wake-up call for me too. I've become more cautious, more aware of the importance of controlling my own accounts and not relying blindly on others. Trust is earned, not given. That's a lesson I'll carry with me forever. I also found strength in the support of friends and family, people who reminded me that I deserved better and that I wasn't alone. The court case, the betrayal, the heartbreak, it all changed me. I'm more cautious, yes, but also more resilient. I've realized that sometimes the only way to survive is to stand up and fight for yourself, to take control of your life again. I know now that no matter how much someone tries to manipulate or deceive you, there is always a way out, always a path to regain your footing, even if it's rocky at first. Most importantly, I've learned to forgive myself, for trusting her, for not seeing the signs sooner, for staying longer than I should have. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It's about releasing the anger and pain that hold you hostage. It's about understanding that I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, and now I'm choosing to move forward. So, if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Listen to your gut, trust your instincts, and never ignore the small signs. Because when someone betrays you, it's not just about the money or the sex, it's about the trust, the foundation of everything we build our lives on. And once that's broken, it's damn hard to rebuild. But it's not impossible. You just have to be willing to fight for yourself, no matter how hard it gets. I'm still healing, still learning, but I'm also stronger than I ever thought I could be. And I know now that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. That's what I'll hold onto from this nightmare. My newfound strength and the hard-earned wisdom that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself again.